Today, what I want to let you know that precision has escaped us in our little time here because I'm not the person who should be speaking. Actually, about, 12:33 yesterday, I got a call that the person who was supposed to speak to you today, his wife went into labor and they had a baby last night. So I get a call and they hand me a computer and say, hey, here's a PowerPoint slide, why don't you go present? So we're gonna listen to Dan, who will be on the PowerPoint today, and then I have several other things that I'd like to just mix in. My name's Joseph Myers, and I'm with TriNet Internet Solutions. We're a company, and I think we have slides about this actually. I should probably go to those. So TriNet is this company. And my job at TriNet is different than Dan's. Actually, we have a whole strategic department, and that department is a part of what Dan does as strategy around how to build web initiatives, mobile initiatives, anything that has to do with digital. That whole team is actually out today. So it just so happens that this was kind of your unfortunate day that you get me. My job is to actually build business case strategies around initiatives. Now, I'm a best-selling author, and one of my fortes is I'm an armchair sociologist, anthropologist. That's kind of what I do, is try to understand people and their behaviors and where we head. So I'm going to take this whole discussion probably more in those lights and get philosophical, and then Dan will keep reminding us in the PowerPoint to get more and more practical. So just to let you know, I'll kind of flip through these slides. They'll have some interesting ideas that I have no idea what he's trying to tell you. So you just take down notes and I'll send you the PowerPoint slide. I think you'll probably have a better idea than I do. So there's a bunch of people in this room who are searching out the technology to help us connect with one another and get some sense of that we're giving help and hope to the people that we're trying to reach. Is that fair? You know, the interesting thing about talking and discussing this in kind of a Christian format as to all other formats, there is a sense that everyone is actually moving to helping people with their lives, even in business. The bottom line no longer is kind of the money, although they do chase the money a lot. But a lot of businesses that I sit in front of, their sole purpose is to try to help with hope and help, handles of hope and help, the people that they're trying to reach. Now, they do that as a business strategy. I don't see anything wrong with that. They'd like to make some money off of that. Some of you would like to actually increase donations off of helping people. So there are plans and strategies that you can do that. But the world is actually trying to connect in a helpful way, at least I see that, more than in kind of a manipulation kind of way. And one of the things about technology, when I used to speak about technology, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago, but several years ago, one of the things that talking in a Christian community about technology was trying to convince them that it wasn't evil, that it wasn't the devil, that it wasn't something that we had to fight against or preach against or keep our kids away from or protect them. Of course, there's all kind of protection that we need to do in the technology that we're in, but that's not the primary focus now. We're embracing technology in a way that allows us to connect human to human. Now that sounds strange to some of us because some of us grew up in an era, in this era change that we're in, we grew up with an era mindset that would be what I would call more agrarian than anything. And that agrarian mindset does not have a technology-connected piece. And so it's very unfamiliar territory for some of us to move into a place that is totally virtual, but allows us to connect human beings to human beings. So the primary purpose of what you're trying to do is to connect humans with humans. I think that we always have to remind ourselves of that because we can get enamored with technology and the way that it kind of muses us into something else, paying attention to other things. We're trying to connect person to person, people with hope and help. So how do we do that? One of the things that this is supposed to be about is talking about personas and purpose. We probably won't talk a lot about purpose today, because I'm hoping that you can kind of dig among the core of who you are and your organization and what they are doing and figure out what your primary purpose is. What I'd like to talk more about today is building personas. Now, what I know is when we talk to companies, individuals, churches, organizations, bloggers, whoever it is, when we talk to them primarily about what they're trying to do with their initiatives, one of the things that they always forget or skip over in a very quick fashion is, who are you trying to reach? And describing that in a very specific way. Because I'm just telling you, the very foundation, these two things, persona and purpose, if you don't have these to build on, you're actually building on sand. You're going someplace with your technology that technology will take you someplace that you don't want to probably be. And it will be very frustrating for you. So one of the keys, or two of the keys, is building this persona and purpose. So in this room, what I'd like to know is, and Dan's going to help us with this, how many of you are bloggers? Okay. And then how many of you are in a ministry, non-church related, but ministry? Okay. And how many of you are on church staff? Okay, great. And then what's the last one? And how many do you work just a corporate company? Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things, I don't know if you noticed, but I noticed this, several people put up their hands on several of these items. And so one particular idea that you need to get is that everybody in this world, do you hear that kind of bouncing back and forth in my voice? Or is that just me off this back wall? Wow, I like hearing myself. Just me, it's my age. One of the things is that everyone is molding into this multiple, what I call gigging opportunities. Many people are involved in many kinds of quote unquote what used to be career paths. There are gigging paths now. I do this, 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 and this. Try to describe me as one particular thing, and that just kind of irritates me because that's not who I am. I am actually a blogger. I work for a ministry on the side. I'm a part of a church staff part-time, and I work in a company, and I'm an author, and I'm a speaker, and I'm a dad, and I'm a blues guitarist and singer, and I mean, we can just keep going on, right? So we are kind of word clustering ourselves into who we are. And one of those things is what is an era change, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later on, but an era change, and that change is bringing about this gigging opportunity, meaning all of us are giggers. Now, that's important to realize because when you build your persona or personas, one thing that you have to realize is everyone you're trying to reach is also a gigger. They are multifaceted. They are doing many things. And so it used to be easier to market to a specific area. So for instance, if I just wanted to market to church staff, it was easy just to go to church staff, but that's no longer the case. Church staff actually do multiple things. And so I have to pay attention to where else are they gigging? What are the areas in which they're paying attention to so that I can market to those areas and capture kind of the outlying circles of where they're participating and the places that they belong. Does that make sense? So what I would like you to do with your team partner, and now you have 2 minutes, with your team partner, I would like for you to create just one persona between the two of you that kind of melts the two of your ideas together. If we were going to create something, just the two of you, 2 or 3 of you together today that melted what you're doing together, who is it that we would go after? I would like for you to give them a name or names, what they do, where do they hang out, where do they belong, what kind of hobbies do they have. So you have about 2 minutes. So this is kind of just off the top of your head, go for it, okay? 2 minutes, go. Okay, so you have the person or persons, the personas that you are trying to reach. Now, as we go along, reflect back on those personas and maybe start filling in some more detail. Who are you trying to reach, and what are you trying to do with them? It's very important that you know the answer to these two foundational questions. Because if you don't, do you know what Google says is the number one thing about your initiative is? What's the number one thing? Content. Problem with starting with content is, what? Okay, there's tons of content, and I can create tons of content, but if I don't know who I'm trying to actually speak to, and what I'm trying to do with them, actually creating some kind of action path that I want them to take, then that engagement, the way that I'm using that person or just kind of filtering my ideas out there for just anyone who will come on board is not very productive. Now, there was a time in the internet when all of us thought through, hey, the internet is about reaching billions of people. That's all it's about. It's about this wide broadcast. Well, that is the worst kind of marketing idea on the planet, is to use such a robust tool to, quote unquote, reach billions. Unless there's billions of people in your persona. Now we're talking about something. Now we can actually focus in and do something that's compelling that people will actually start talking about. And then not only does your persona pay attention to you, but the persona's friend starts paying attention to you, even though they may have some ancillary connection to what you're talking about. And you can start filtering out into the circles that go beyond just your persona. But if you try to start on the outside of these big circles and try to move in, it's just one of the biggest mistakes you're going to make. So Google's right, content is so important, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But the number one thing that you need to figure out is who and what are you doing with them? What's your purpose for them? Now, why worry about purpose and persona? Well, this next slide is true and not true. So if Dan were here, he and I would argue about this, and that's because Dan and I are in two different areas. What I try to do is think about the future and what we're doing and the strategies that we're implementing in the future. Dan's actually job is to implement the strategies that we're working right now. Does that make sense? And so he and I are constantly thinking through, okay, how to implement what we're doing right now. Now, why worry about this? Drive more traffic. Okay, how many of you have realized that the number of likes that you have really almost makes no difference at all? Okay, I can get you 1 billion likes. And there's books out there that get you likes and get you site visitors and get traffic and drive people to your site. But they're people who don't matter. Meaning that the compelling thing that you have to say isn't going to be compelling to them. It's not going to connect with them at all. And so just driving traffic is one of the most essential fallacies of the web right now and the strategies that are being built. So any of the books that tell you, listen, I can get you 1,000 likes a day and I can drive traffic, literally anybody can do that. Those tricks and tips are very easy, and mainly because we have people around the planet who are paid pennies at a time to like your page. It has nothing to do whether they read anything that you have or are interested in your content or you're compelling them to do anything or you're helping them. They're getting paid to actually click on you. So I can get you tons of that and it's for free, but it makes no difference. Okay, it doesn't widen your influence. All it does is actually get you to be lazy because all of a sudden, I have 1 million followers. Yeah, but are they really following or have they just clicked on you one time? Have they liked you? Does that make sense? So it's very, marketing strategies still work. The direct mail kind of stuff still works. You have to make sure that you know who you're going after and why you're going. And driving traffic is a little bit of importance. So where do we start? Now, Dan did these, and these are some very interesting slides, I think. So he equates wisdom with strategy. So we're just going to go through these because there's a couple funny things in here. The wisdom of the prudent is discernment, Proverbs 14:8. Proverbs 14:15. Give some thought to what you're doing, build some wisdom and strategy. WordPress 3:16. The native blogger thinks that he's getting traffic on his site. Google 28:20. You got to put Google Analytics on your site to measure engagement. Proverbs 16:9. Make some plans, establish your steps. So we know that there's definitely some biblical references that engage us and encourage us to actually take some strategic mindedness to our ministry, to what we're trying to do, to how we engage people. No doubt about it. So don't get kind of lured in to what the web provides and gaining this kind of mass population and likes and visits. Now, let's kind of jump off the slides for a second, and let's talk about something that I think that is really important to engaging your personas. One of the elements, you can give your persona a name, which is important. You need to identify what they do, how they do it, what are their likes, what are their hobbies, where do they hang out, what are their places, what are their sacred places. One of the things that we're playing with right now is called the belonging matrix. And actually, it was Edward Hall's studies in the 60s that talked about, he's the father of proxemics, meaning how people communicate in proximity, how far apart they are and what significance that has. We use this as a belonging matrix because what we're finding is that our personas are moving more and more towards being helped when they are engaged in a particular way, and that kind of engagement we define as belonging. When you can get an engaged persona to visit your site and to engage in a way where they feel like that they're home, where they feel like they have place, now you have a significant, compelling reason for them to return, for them to share your site. Belonging is one of the core reasons why people keep coming back to a site. Now, our belonging matrix is like this. We have public belongers. Those are belongers that connect just because of some kind of outside resource. Because, for instance, I'm an Indiana University men's basketball fan. I grew up in Indiana. I love IU basketball. It's more of a religion than anything to anyone from Indiana. So I'm a huge IU basketball fan. Any place that I go, like if I hit somebody or run into somebody in a restaurant that has IU on, or the other day I was just driving down the road and actually this guy came out to get in his car and he had this big IU sweatshirt. I'm like rolling down my window saying, go IU. Any place that I have a chance to connect with Indiana basketball, I'm going to. That's a public belonger. I really don't care what the guy's name is. See what I mean? That's a public belonger. I'm really not interested all that much in his life except for one small segment, Indiana basketball. Now, many people belong to your site, to your church, to whatever your initiative is on the web. They belong in a way that's public, meaning they don't want to get to know you in any other way than one specific sliver that helps them with a specific part of their life. Is that helpful? Next. Public, social. The social belonger is someone who belongs and wants to engage in a snapshot kind of way. Meaning, for instance, when I introduce myself, or any of us do this, when we run into somebody and are introducing ourselves, even if it's a longtime friend and we are just engaging for the first few minutes, a lot of times what we like to do is roll through the Rolodex of who we are and pull out things that we think might engage that other person. So I might say to some people, well, I'm a blues guitarist and singer and performer. I love blues guitar. The reason I say that is because I think it's going to engage with the person. If I don't think that they're interested in blues guitar, why bring out that little piece of Rolodex, right? If I say, well, I'm a best-selling author, well, that's going to engage with a whole nother group. Or if I work at TriNet and I'm in technology, that's going to... So we have these little social connections. Your personas all have these Rolodex of things that they are, the way they identify themselves. And they will actually start belonging to your site in a little bit more engaged way, and that engagement belongs around the social aspect of what you're doing. Not kind of social media aspect, but more, how can I engage this little piece of the persona of who I am? How can I share that with someone else? Not the outside resource, like how can I share Indiana basketball, but how can I share a piece of who I am? Public, social, personal. The next belonger is a personal belonger. This is someone who likes to share private kinds of engagement, but not intimate kinds of engagement, okay? They want to be really engaged in this site or in this initiative. They come here every day, every other day. They find hope and help in ways that personally gets to the core of who they are. They want to share those results in some way back to you and with you. They want to engage you in some kind of storytelling with them. So they are a personal belonger. And then the fourth one is an intimate belonger. Now these are the people who actually want to kind of help you with your site. I mean, they go on, they want to engage in ways that are behind the scenes, that it has all of this kind of, intimate actually is defined for us in Scripture as naked and unashamed. Anytime that you have, and I don't mean naked like nudity, but I guess it could, but naked and unashamed, you have intimate kinds of belonging. And there are sites and people who come to your site that want to engage you in this kind of way. Now, it is very helpful in your belonging matrix to look at your persona or personas and try to figure out how they belong and how, in each one of these categories, how will you help them belong to your site? Each one of these personas, even though it looks like the same person, will actually engage in different ways, and one of those matrices is they will belong in different ways to your site. Okay, so with your team partner, I'd like for you to just take another 2 minutes and talk through in which one of these four in the belonging matrix, in which one of these four does your persona that you came up with, do they fit in the most? How many of your persona do you think would fit into which one of these categories the most? Now I'm going to tell you that in your persona, there'll be people who fit in all four. Okay, so you'll have numbers in all four, probably. But which one stands out the most? Ready? Go, 2 minutes. Okay, so how many of you know Seth Godin? Anybody follow Seth? So this morning, and this isn't to drop his name, but this morning he and I were talking about what I was doing this morning, and we're working on a project together. And I said, so Seth, what would be the thing that you would tell this class, or the people that are there? And he said, you know, the number one thing that I would tell them is to look at, you have to not demonize, but also not put this on a pedestal, reactive forms of knowing who your persona is. Now, we're going to talk about reactive here in a second, or over the next few slides. And one of the things that I know is most people come into their personas from the back door in a reactive way. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's only part of the picture. Most of what we've been talking about so far is proactive, figuring out who your persona is before you kind of engage them. But there's also a way to figure out, as you know through analytics, there's ways to figure out reactively who's coming to your site, how they're reacting, all the behaviors that they have. It's easy actually to figure those things out. One of the reasons why we've been so enamored with reactive forms of figuring out your personas is because it's so easy. Because figuring those people out and what they're doing is a part of just putting kind of software attachments on your site and coding your site to figure that out. And now all of a sudden I know who's on my site. Well, don't become so enamored with that that you forget who you want on your site and how you want them to behave. Okay, and all the time kind of bring those two cycles together so you have this proactive side that is actually feeding your content and your thoughts every day as you're deciding on what to put on and how to put it on and figure out all those kinds of things. For instance, let's just talk about the proactive side. If I'm thinking about trying to increase my giving, anybody here trying to increase giving over your web initiative? Okay, if I'm thinking about trying to increase my giving, one of the things that is very helpful is this belonging matrix. Because most of us ask for giving in two categories, personal and intimate. Because we think those are the only two personas that actually give. Most dollars are actually given in these two. For instance, I give to the Salvation Army and I have no real personal or intimate connection with them. I like what they do, and I'm a public belonger to them. I really don't want to know everything that they do. I don't want to get their year-end report. I don't want to read their newsletter. I just know that they do good stuff. Look, that's good enough for me. So I'm a public giver. So you have to decide how to engage me up front. So a proactive way of figuring out how to talk in each one of these belonging matrices will help you in a proactive way to gain more donations because you're connecting with that person the way that they want to belong with you. It's very crucial. Is that a helpful example? Because some of you, I know when I was talking about belonging matrix, just looked at me like the devil. But that's how you would use this proactive tool. You can also use a reactive tool to figure out how people are reacting to the way that your site engages them, the UI of your site, and how it engages them to give. What we know is that engagement and giving is a very interesting idea online because it's different than it is in person, and many of us have tried to use the same kind of in-person giving tactics to online giving tactics. How many of you are familiar with giving envelopes? Does anyone know where giving envelopes started? Giving envelopes started because people used to get paid in envelopes. On Friday, the boss would show up and give you an envelope. Now, some of us remember those days, but you'd show up, they'd give it to you. I don't even know what day I get paid now because it just automatically goes, into my account. I don't get an envelope anymore. But we still try to use giving envelope kinds of tactics in an era when we don't get paid that way. Many people don't understand kind of quote unquote the giving envelope mentality. So that's one way that you can start figuring out proactively how you're looking at your site, how to engage people in your site, and figure out in a proactive way. The reactive way is if they kind of click on Give Now, they get to the next step and they bounce off. Now, what compels someone to click on Give Now and bounce off? That's an interesting idea. Because if I'm going to take an effort to click on Give Now, I intend to give. We do know that about people. People don't accidentally just click on Give Now. But I think that you'll probably can look at your sites and there are a lot of bounce rate on the Give Now button. So you can reactively figure out what's happening, where's the slowdown, why is it happening, what's the reaction. You can heat map your site so that it can tell you where that person is going as they're looking at the next step. What is it that's kind of holding them up? Are you asking for too much information too quickly? There's all kinds of ways to figure that out, but that's a reactive mode of figuring out why people are bouncing off and not actually giving. Questions, comments? By the way, interrupt me anytime, because I'll just keep talking. So,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you found the most reasons why people do end up bouncing after clicking Give Now? Are there any reasons you found why, or is it just different for every organization?
I would say the top reason why people bounce is too much information. You ask for the form's like this long. Instead of breaking that up into 3 steps and telling them it's going to be 3 steps, you have to kind of give them a roadmap and say, hey, we're going to go through a 3-step process for, you don't actually say that, but visually you say it. And now they're engaged. Okay, I put in 3 bits of information. Next page, 3 or 4 bits of information. Next page, 3 or 4 bits of. Now people usually don't bounce off that.
Okay.
But if all of a sudden, you ask for address, social security, everything on one page, people like freak out. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. All I want to do is give $10. And my social security number is actually worth a lot more than $10, so I'm not going to do this.
Right. I was wondering whether, I'm thinking also of surveys.
Mm-hmm.
If I've stayed at a hotel or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
we'd appreciate your taking a survey. So I click on take a survey. And same thing.
Yeah.
The first page is so long
Yep.
that I'm immediately gone.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, even if they start out slow and keep page after page after page
Yeah, if
after
there's 8 pages,
I don't finish it.
no, you're gone. So we have to we really have to start thinking, what are the most crucial questions we have to ask, and when should we ask them, and tell them along the way that it's going to go 1 more step. It's not going to go 8 more steps, and it's going to take you 20 minutes to fill this out, unless that's what you want. And then you're up front, and you say, this is going to take about 20 minutes. People will bounce right then, and the people who give you 20 minutes, now you have who you wanted. If that's who you want, is the person who's going to take 20 minutes, then that's a great way to do it. You have to understand, bounce rate isn't always negative. You're actually filtering people out who won't participate. Now, if I click a give button though, you don't want those people to bounce, because I've already decided that I'm giving if I click that button. Is that helpful? Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's see what Dan has to say here. So I think that he's going to give a few very helpful, I hope they're helpful. Some of it I won't understand. So I hope there's a little bit of helpful in how to get going here. So how many of you have Google Analytics installed on your site? Okay. Is it because the rest of you, because you just don't want Google Analytics, you don't know how to do it? Just don't care? Google Analytics is actually a great way to have a reactive response and know exactly where you're going and how your personas, how the people are reacting on your site. So how do I start? Well, Christians love books. So here's a couple of books that actually are a very good start. If you want to start learning how to put Google Analytics on, here's a couple really good. And by the way, if I go too fast, just come up afterwards. And here's another. This one is a little bit more dry, but he gives really clear, concise, step-by-step information on this. So who's the persona? And I mean persona now. We've developed kind of persona from the proactive way in the reactive form. So personas and reactively are determined by 3 different categories. Behavior, how are they behaving in your site? What's the demographic? And what's the location? And we can find out all of these things. So the behaviors that we're looking on a site may look like this, but probably the most behavior that we're looking on our site when you first get Google Analytics, how many of you on the first time you looked at Google Analytics went, what? How many of you are still saying, what are they trying to tell me? One of the wonderful things about Google Analytics is they give you a lot of information. One of the worst things about it is they haven't yet become kind of the concierge of that information. They just regurgitate it to you. Hey, I want this, give it to me, and they just blast it to you, right? And so one of the things that we at TriNet do is actually figure out ways to concierge the information that they're trying to give you. Now, behavior is determined by site flow, keywords, frequency, and engagement. Now, if you go to this, actually it will help you to add some code to give you some analytics, this Bitly. And Dan actually has given you a step-by-step of once you do this, for site flow, these dashboards will come up. You actually pick audience. Under the audience, you pick visitor flow, and it'll actually show you something like this.
Can you go back to that site address?
Sure. And this, everything that we're going to show you on the slides is actually free. So if you go to this, it'll show you how to just.
The Bitly link is bad. That link is bad.
It is bad? Dan, what was he thinking, about a baby or something? Okay, I'll try to figure out why it's bad. Did it work for anyone else? No? Okay, I'll make note of it. And I think at the end it gives my address, and you guys can say, hey, I'd like to have that fixed. So to figure out site flow, it's actually a very nice, easy tool to engage. You can actually figure out how your site flow, how people are engaging in your site as far as site flow. This example actually is very interesting because this page, the About page, if I'm reading this right, if I remember this example, there are more people coming to About Me than there are to the home page in this particular example. Now, that's supposed to clue me or cue me into saying, if you have an About Me on your page and you're not doing Google Analytics to figure out that people are actually going there the most of any page that you have, you will figure it out when you get Google Analytics on there. On most sites, more people go to About Me than any other place, and we pay the least amount of attention to the About Me page. You can do so much with people and engage them with your About Me page. It's one of the keys, kind of the little secrets of the web. People who do really well on their About Me and give engagement and allow people to process and click through to other pages, that's the way, one of the keys to actually engaging people in site flow. Then you can continue with picking your traffic. Social media we picked here, your visitors, and you do your traffic sources. This is your keyword searches, or organic, and you get something like this. So this free little tool gives you pretty good understanding of site flow, keywords. We're going to show a little bit more. We've blacked out because you would know, if I showed you the keywords, you'd actually know which organization this was for. Gives you bounce rate, new visits. Gives you all kinds of great information. We're going to talk about site or bounce rates here in a second because there's a little bit of a misnomer of what bounce rates, what they're for. Try this one. Does this one work? I wonder if all of these are bad. Hopefully this one works. No? Ugh. Okay, I'll have to send all of them. So this is a keyword-driven persona kind of, it's very helpful. It allows you to figure out who your personas are, what kind of matrix to use to develop kind of that reactive understanding of where they're going, who they are. It's a very helpful tool, and I wish this worked actually. But we'll make it work. And I'll show you how. So it develops frequency rates. There's an engagement dashboard that allows you to pick your audience, the behaviors that you want them want to measure. Let's pick engagement, and it gives you numbers like this. So it tells you your page views, your visits, how people are engaging, how long they're staying on, Now, one thing about engagement and bounce rates. Let's talk about this for a second. Engagement usually is congruent with compelling content. Almost always. Compelling content equals engagement and keeps people engaged. Now, we all know that there is tons of content, but it has to be compelling. So what constitutes engagement, and how do you measure that according to bounce rate? Because most people actually measure engagement through bounce rates. Well, let's say that you have a blog post, and we're going to talk about how Google measures bounce rate actually. Let's say you have a blog post, and engagement usually looks something like this. I read it, I comment, I reply, I share, and I leave. Now that's a pretty good engagement, right? Would you agree? If you got most of your personas or the people that you want to engage in this way, you'd be pretty happy that they were actually doing all 5 of these. But how do we measure that? On site, 0 to 10 seconds is the bounce rate gets high. Now there's a misnomer about this bounce rate though. I think Dan was in a baby mood when he put this together. That's like we're going to go to another baby picture. The thing that babies will do to you. Let me show you what we mean here. How does Google measure this 0 to 10 seconds? Because there's a key. Some of this 0 to 10 seconds aren't really people who are bouncing. And I'll show you why. Google measures bounce like this. You go to a page, you get a cookies. That cookie actually then, and you go to another page, Google measures as soon as you go to that next page, now you are not a bouncer. Okay, so you see what I mean? As soon as you hit here, now you're outside of their bounce rate. You are not a bouncer any longer. But what happens if I'm a blogger and all I want you to do is read my blog post? And I scroll down your page and I read it and I go, wow, that was cool content. And I go to another page. Do you know what I am? I'm a bouncer. But I just engaged in your site the way you wanted me to. But Google's going to measure you as a bouncer. So, in fact, this is what. So how do I fix this? You can do one thing. You can paginate. So you take me from a short clip of what the blog's about to read more. Wham, I go to the next page. Now Google doesn't measure me as a bounce. Does that make sense? So you can do short little headings, short little phrases, a short paragraph, a description. Wham, I go to the next page. Now I'm not a bouncer. Or you can do, see if this one works. I'm really sorry about this. I'm not sure why these wouldn't work. Does that one work? Yay! So this one will help you do some post-pagination and what I was just talking about. Or you can do some advanced coding. Most of you don't want to do advanced coding. So advanced tracking, this little piece of software will help you with that. Hopefully that Bitly will work. Did it work? So what that helps you do is actually it gives you the ability to code your site where it will measure how much time, so let's say I have a page and I actually scroll on this page to read your content, and it'll actually measure your, that wasn't good, your cursor movement, and given those analytics on the cursor movement and the scroll, it will take you out of your bounce rate. So it'll say, hey, Google says your bounce rate is 142K, but we say that 42K of that actually engaged in your site. Is that helpful? So one of the ways to reactively help you with this coding problem is this link, except it doesn't work, but we'll get it to you. Next is demographic, and there's a few tools here. How many of you use User Report? It's a free tool. You'll want to kind of take that down. It allows you to get reports like this, where your traffic sources are coming from. Does this one give male and female? I think it might give male and female on another page, on the demographics page of this. Also, there's Follower Wonk. Anybody use this one? Another really good free tool. And Follower Wonk will actually break down male and female specifically. It's probably one of the best male and female tools. And then most of you will know that Google Analytics, there's tons of analytics about location and where people are coming from and how they got to your site. So I won't spend much time on that. So it's no longer a mystery then in a reactive way of who your persona is, who's coming to your site. We know exactly who it is. It's this guy. I'm pretty sure he's visiting all of our sites. Okay, so one of the helpful keys, we're going to bounce off of reactive for a second, go to proactive. One of the helpful tools that we're finding in content development, because content is king, once you know your persona and your purpose and what you want to do with them, how do you develop content? One of the things is that many of us get kind of stepped or stymied, or we slow down when it comes to content because we don't know, we don't plan it out. So I'm going to give you a really helpful tool to plan out your content. A content calendar, actually we developed this, or it was, we had help developing it, was developed in a study that measured how people measure their own lives. How do people measure the important things of their life? And it did it through storytelling and allowed people to storytell about their lives and what were the main stories they told and what qualities of those stories could we pick out of those stories to actually come up with some analytical tool to help us to create content that mattered. So compelling content, when we think about compelling content, we think about a content calendar that looks like this. For every 8 one-time topic kinds of content that we put on the site. So this is a standalone piece. I'm either blogging about this, or it's a standalone event that I'm advertising, or it's a standalone event that I'm trying to get somebody to donate towards, or whatever. For every 8 of those, you should have 6 short-term meaning less than 6 times. Is less than like that, right? Less than 6 times. So you should have some content on your initiative that actually goes from 0 to 6 times, 1 to 6 times, that allows you kind of a progression of events in 6 events. So people will follow you for 6 events. There's actually a big drop-off of people who will follow you from here to here. This is the drop-off point. Now, all drop-offs are not bad. If your personas, if you're trying to get to a specific persona, you want those people who are not a part of that engagement cluster to drop off. It's okay if those people drop off. Actually, it's very interesting to me that most churches get upset at the Christmas and Easter crowd because they don't come more often. I'm very happy that they come at all. They come Christmas and Easter. We should be blessed by that. Isn't that exciting? They come 2 times a year. That's probably about all they can handle of you, is 2 times a year. Let them come and be free to come. Their drop-off rate is right here. 1 time. Do you see what I'm saying? You really don't want everybody on the planet to come to your place. You really don't. You have a specific mission that God's called you to. Now, do that. So, the next is seasonal. And seasonals are, the major seasonals, Christmas, Easter, those kinds of things, but also church camp season or race season. If you're from Indiana, you have race day, carburation day, all kinds of stuff like that. You can have, in Long Beach, you would have race season. There's all kinds of seasonal things that you can create content around. You should have 4 of those for every, and these are relational, they're not exact numbers. I hope you see they're just a relational. Long term is more than 6 times. So I'm going to write a blog, and it's going to be 13. It's going to be a series of 13. That's a long-term event. If we want to know why most people are dropping off kind of the Sunday school event kind of thing or confirmation, it's because of this right here. It's a long-term event. And we've just lost about 50% of people drop off here. If we did confirmation, for instance, and 2 short-term packages, people would stay. More people would do it. So if you're thinking about, you should have long-term, but only do 2 to every 8 one time. And then this one is weekly, monthly, year-round. And you should have 1 thing that kind of goes every week or every month, year-round, all the time, very consistent, kind of that tortoise kind of thing. It's there, it does its thing. So when we think about a site development, we think about this content calendar and how we can create to engage people around that content calendar. So when you look at this next year, if I were you, I'd sit down and I'd say, okay, what's the content that I want to present 8 one-time events? What's the 8 things that I want to say in particular one time?
Is that written somewhere in more detail? So if I wanted to read more about that?
Actually, it's not at this point. It's just something that we're actually playing with and with great success right now. So more to come. Okay. Sorry. Most of this stuff that I'm writing on the sides of this, the proactive stuff, is stuff that we've been playing with for a while, and has great success. But we haven't really written stuff about it yet. We haven't written our white papers about it yet. So we would sit down with this content calendar and we would make sure that it just happened in that fashion. Now, should I continue with Dan's? Let's talk about something that you should know about your persona and the personas that you're choosing. We are finding that there is a major shift that's happened, and most of us have either read about or talked about or heard about kind of the postmodern shift or whatever the shift. You know, there's been given 100,000 names to this cultural shift that we've gone through. However, we think that it may be even more significant than cultural or generational. So I don't think that we're talking about just about Generation X or Y or, you know, whatever they call the next generation. Whatever it is, I think it's more than generational, and I think that it's more than postmodern and modern. We actually think that we have gone through an era change, and by that we mean that we were first nomadic. Remember in history class how their eras were broken up? So in nomadic you had hunter-gatherers, you had pastoral nomadicism, which was you had a flock and you kind of followed them around, and then you had peripatetic, meaning that you had goods to sell and you went from city to city or town to town or community to community or house to house to sell those goods. Now, during the shift between nomadic and agrarian, guess what major body of work was written? In fact, it's the history of this shift. It's called the Bible. The Bible is written right in the middle of this nomadic agrarian shift. And you see it all the time, especially in Jesus' teachings. First, he'll teach about a parable about a man who owns land and has servants who farms the land. What is that? Agrarian, right? The next time he talks about farming, he talks about it in what? A nomadic way, just throwing seed. Remember that? This happens all the time. In fact, one of the biggest conflicts of the Bible that it's pointing out is this conflict of changing a mindset between nomadic and agrarian. Now, we think that we're actually heading back into a new nomadicism. And we actually call this tech-nomadic. And we call this geo-nomadic. So the sensibilities of this change, let me just show you what I mean by this. An agrarian sensibilities are around 4 different key items. 1, geographical proximity, meaning geography was very important. Having land and having proximity, meaning your neighbor is usually 5 miles away kind of thing, but settling on a piece of land, having exclusive ownership, number 2. Number 3, control and maintain. And number 4, settlement. Those were very key things to an agrarian mind. Now, some of your personas are going to be in this mindset. It's going to be very important for them to have geographical proximity when they're on the web, meaning they have a place to go, a geographical place that also is in relation to the site that their virtual site that they're visiting. We find agrarians, what they like to do most is when they shop at a store that they can actually go to the store and pick it up. That's an agrarian mindset. Okay, I can buy it online, but there's a place I can go that's near me that I can pick that up. There's safety in that. That's an agrarian kind of mindset of using the web. A nomad says, that doesn't make any sense to me. Somebody could bring it to me. Why would I get in my car and go somewhere? Geographical proximity has no effect on me. Does that make sense? So a lot of agrarians who come to your church, agrarian mindset, will actually think, I will go to the church's website that actually I'll also attend. I will hardly ever go to a place that I can also have some physical contact with. Geographical proximity is very important to them. And so it's one of the things that if your personas are mainly agrarian mindset, that you want to have some bricks and mortar kinds of ability to connect them to. Now that doesn't mean that nomads don't like to go to bricks and mortar. They do. But it's just not necessary for them to connect the virtual and brick. Now, the nomad sensibilities, for instance, well, just think about agrarian for a second when you're thinking about how people actually interpret Scripture. Geographical proximity, I want my own Bible. Okay, that was very big in the print era, and print is a very agrarian kind of concept. So I want my own place. I want I want exclusive ownership, meaning I want to own the King James Version only. You hear how that agrarian starts kind of playing out? It's my church, it's not the visitor's church. This is my seat, not someone who comes and visits it. I sit in the same place every time. Those are all agrarian kinds of mindsets. I'm not pronouncing them as evil or good or bad. I'm just saying that's the mindset. Control and maintain. So I need a theology that I can control and maintain, that I have some kind of control over what is good and what is evil, what is bad, that my interpretation of what Scripture is comes around that control and maintain, and I want some kind of settlement that every argument can be settled. Settlement is very important to an agrarian. I know when I'm in an argument with someone and they demand that there be an answer, I know I'm talking to an agrarian. Or at least some remnants of an agrarian. Now, nomadic. In relationship to that, a nomad has relational proximity, not geographical proximity. They have a stewardship base, not an exclusive ownership. So more and more, when we see this whole move towards taking care of the planet, everything, that's all nomadic mindset. It doesn't mean that it's just because we've evolved as people and we're going to take care of the planet now. It's because we've moved into this nomadicism. Nomadics before agrarian took care of the planet. Then we have the agrarian age that said, no, I have exclusive ownership. I'm going to put fences around what I own, and I'm going to put as many chemicals in the ground as I can get to get the produce out of it that I can get. And who cares if it affects 3 farms down the road? Right? That's an agrarian mindset. Now we have this stewardship, this nomadic, that goes way back to nomadicism in the beginning. Nomads took care of, they moved from place to place to place because they cared for the land. Because things would run out and they'd say, we need to let this grow a little bit, and they moved on. We went from control and maintain to a collaborative process. We want more and more influences, diverting influences, things that don't make sense. We want to be influenced by as many things as possible so that we can have this collaborative process that allows us to not really, quote unquote, have control, but that we as a whole have some kind of viewpoint that we can all kind of mix into this. And when you look at personas, you have to decide, am I talking in this persona, are they mainly agrarian or are they mainly nomadic? Because it'll make a huge difference to how you prepare your content. And then lastly, we are no longer really considerate of settlement, of being in one place. We want holistic, relative, hybrid movement. Now by that, I don't mean that people actually physically want to move. Some people do, and they don't mind moving all over the planet. But quite frankly, our movement, our nomadicism today is all digital. This morning, I was in New York. Last night, I was in India. The day before that, I was in Australia. All of us travel all over the planet every day. We talk with people, we Skype with them, we enjoy sites and web initiatives that are from other places on the planet, and we all travel and we don't mind kind of this holistic movement and going around. Agrarians, that really bothers. In fact, that was one of the number one things about, how many of you remember the whole discussion around Walkmans? The whole thing, the church was against Walkmans. Do you know why? Because people are going to put headsets on and they're just going to become individuals and they won't have any community any longer. What they didn't realize is they're having community with whatever they're pumping into their head. Community and belonging actually happens between your ears. You decide to have community with whatever. So it's very interesting to how we then looked at the web, and the church actually kind of riled up against the web initially because how can you have really essential community on Facebook? You can't tell me that Facebook is actually, you have to have face-to-face. You have to touch people. Well, tell my daughter that, who, when something happens to her friend that she's never met in South Africa, and something happens to her, and she comes out of her bedroom crying because her friend is upset, I don't get it. I have more of an agrarian in me that I'd like to admit. But I do know she has an authentic connection with this person in South Africa, this girl her age. Don't tell her that's not a real connection. So you have to decide when you're building your personas, are they more agrarian or more nomadic? Because that's going to then determine, remember, content is king. It's going to determine what you say in your content calendar and how they actually belong, more or less, is on the mindset of the agrarian nomadic. Now, I'm going to stop there. Let me see if there's any. I'm going to go through these really. Think about when you're creating your content, that your content should always create a solution. Keyword searches are about searching problems, quote unquote. So if I have a need or a problem, I do keyword search. That's what search SEO is all about, SEM is all about. It's about those searchable and connecting with a specific problem. And your content should always try to meet the solution of what that is, what the problem is actually promoting. A couple of tools to help you with content marketing. Just to let you know, there's one of the great ways to help you with content marketing is to create an ebook. Ebooks are very easy to create. Does anybody in this room have ebooks that they published? A couple? They're a tremendous way to get your message out there, to help people engage, to actually market your content either for free or you can actually sell it online. So you just, a couple of really good tools here. Print Friendly is a pretty good tool. Becoming an author, so authorship on Google is a great way to do it. Let me see if this Bitly, does this Bitly work?
There's nothing on the screen.
The projector died.
Oh, I wonder why. That's what that thing was. Do you think it'll come back up?
It
Yeah,
will
sorry,
come
it's
back.
on a 90-minute.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Or it's on a 75-minute or something. You have to reboot, sorry.
So, oh, that's okay. So, Bitly/authorship Google. Try that. And actually, then, have anybody ever used HelloBar? So HelloBar is a great tool, puts a bar at the top, allows you to put content in there, allows people to, and it gives you some really pretty good analytics about this. So you can, really push your content through that content bar. You can say, hey, want to find out more about, click here kind of thing. Want a free ebook about, click this. Want to know whatever. HelloBar is a really good way, it goes to the top of your site. It's a really good way to. Please wait. We're not waiting. So I'm going to stop there.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.